What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to the Pod at the Palace, a Friday morning live episode of the Pod at the Palace. How about that?
I didn't know if we were ever going to make it to Friday.
I know, yeah.
To be honest.
I mean, we literally thought all day yesterday that it was Friday, but this is actually the day. What's going on, folks? Curtis Wilkerson here, Scottie Bordelon from Natty State Sports Studios in downtown Fayetteville. We got some stuff to talk about. So John Calipari's initial staff at Arkansas is starting to come together. So we wanted to hop on here and go live and talk about that, and maybe what to expect from some of these guys. A couple little recruiting nuggets. We're live this morning because we wanted to jump on here and talk to everybody and maybe leave ourselves the open window of going live again if something cool happens later. But this is also interactive, so like this is going to last as long as you guys, as long as you want it to. So hop in the chat if you got questions, comments, whatever, throw it in there. So what's up? What's up, Scottie? What's going on, man?
Not much, dude.
We were just talking about our nights.
Yeah, yeah. I woke up in a not great way this morning, and I'm sorry that Slim took one of your tendies last night. That sucks.
It's kind of crazy. Right before we got on here, Scottie asked me how my night was, and I was like, I got to be honest with you, man, it wasn't great. And he's like, what's going on, man? Like, what happened? And I just got to be honest with you guys. Like, I got off work and was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna go get a little fitness in. Went on a run, little jog, and came back and I was hungry. And
so you decided to start fitting these chicken strips in your mouth.
That's right, man. Yeah, and our coworker in here, Kurt with a K, was talking about how good Slim Chickens has been lately. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go get me some of that, and I did. Set it down on the table and went to grab a cold snack out of the fridge and came back in. And my 12-year-old wiener dog by the name of Slim Jim, he snagged one of my tendies, man, and it upset me. Slim Jim ate some Slim Chickens, and I went to bed a little bit hungry. But whatever.
That's tough.
Whatever. We woke up to some news. Basketball we'll talk about now instead of dogs doing things they shouldn't be doing. Matt Norlander at CBS Sports reported this morning, I got his tweet pulled up, John Calipari is expected to bring all his stable of assistants from Kentucky to Arkansas. Assistants are Orlando Antigua, Chin Coleman, Chuck Martin, Special Assistant Bruiser Flint. Calipari will also bring on his son Brad in a player development role. So I think the first thing that we need to go ahead and say there, and we'll talk about what that means a little bit later, this is not Calipari's full staff. And this is about the guys that he's bringing in from Kentucky. So I know everybody's asking about, a couple people in particular, and we'll talk about it. But no, that doesn't mean that they're out of the equation by any means. It just means these are dudes who are coming over from Kentucky. Scottie, I know that you've been working on just some different profiles on some of these guys. What do you have to say about what you've learned about these dudes? And then I got a little bit of intel on a couple of them that I'd be happy to share here momentarily.
Yeah, I'm super interested in that. I know you've reached out to somebody who's covered these coaches in the past, and I've built profiles for, like, I had to come in here and do one this morning, build one of those profiles. But I mean, I would kind of, when I was building these profiles a couple days ago, just in case this kind of thing was going to happen, I would just like randomly drop you little nuggets that I'd learned about these guys. And Orlando Antigua has an interesting past. I'll say that, and it's not like a dirty skeletons in the closet type of thing. It's like he got shot in 1988 on Halloween in the head, and he spent some time with the Harlem Globetrotters. Or is anybody sold yet?
Yeah.
No, but I feel like he's one of Cal's, if not Cal's most trusted assistant. I could be reading that wrong. But yeah, I mean, he served at Memphis under Cal and then followed him to Lexington. He was a head coach at South Florida. That stint didn't exactly go well, but he's also, served at Illinois under Brad Underwood. So he's worked under some really good coaches, and he coached and played for the Dominican Republic national team. So he's got a lot of experience. Chuck Martin served on Cal's bench as an assistant and recruiting coordinator at Kentucky last year. He's a Puerto Rico native. He's been an assistant at UMass, Drexel, Memphis. Was a head coach at Marist. That didn't exactly go great, but I also learned that he served as a scout with the Oklahoma City Thunder for a while. Was also an assistant with Frank Martin at South Carolina, and then he was on Dana Altman's staff at Oregon. And then Chin Coleman and Bruiser Flint, like those are guys that, like, when Kentucky came to Bud this year, those dudes have a presence.
Yeah.
Those guys have a presence about them, and they are just, if coaches can be drippy, those, like Cal's staff is, they've got some sauce to them.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's funny that you say that,
and
because
Brad's the same way. Like, we saw him walk into the airport the other day with like that rust-colored blazer on and looking sharp, had the wrist action working, and
oh yeah,
and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So
it was funny to see, like Riley Hall, for example, or even like the SID, Mike Kaywood, like all those guys at the airport at Drake, and then at the event Wednesday night, suited up. And I was like, damn, I haven't seen these dudes in anything other than a polo in 5 years. This is kind of crazy,
Yeah, it is,
But
sure.
that was interesting to see, for sure. Different vibes.
yeah,
They're looking. Pookie's looking quintessential old school basketball staff nowadays.
absolutely. Like Chin Coleman, Chicago native, worked under Cal the last 3 seasons. Spent the previous 4 years at Illinois. He's also an assistant at Bradley in Illinois, Chicago. Like, he's got deep recruiting ties in Chicago. I think he's before he joined a college coaching staff, I think he was pretty embedded in the grassroots scene in Chicago. And Bruiser Flint, I mean, he was a head coach at, I believe he succeeded. Yeah, he was Cal's successor at UMass. Took them to the NCAA tournament the first 2 years of his tenure, and then he was a coach at Drexel for a long time. He's won over 300 games as a college head coach, and he led Drexel to a 29-win season one time. So these guys all have chops, and I know Kentucky fans are probably, based on the Twitter comments that I've been reading the last few days, and especially this morning, they're glad to see those guys go. But valued staff members, recruiters, trusted assistants. Brad Calipari looks like he's going to be in a player development role. So I'm eager to see all these guys get to work.
Yeah, a lot of UK fans in here shitting on these guys, which is not necessarily a surprise to me, but I do appreciate having people in here who just, like, you don't have to be an insider, just a Kentucky fan, who they might have some insight, and we hear the stories that go around and everything like that. So share that, because we want to know, right? So,
sure.
And we'll definitely get to the chat, the questions, the comments towards the end of this. It's always a good time. But do have some intel on a couple of these guys I want to share. But before I do, I just want to tell everybody about our friends over at Signature Bank. Signature is a privately held boutique bank that's redefining the banking experience in our region. They blend the warmth and familiarity of a community bank with the sophistication of a commercial bank and the expertise of private banking to deliver unmatched levels of service. If you're looking for reasons to do your banking with Signature, they're personally invested, business-minded, community-focused, right-sized, and forward-thinking. Make sure you go check out one of their Arkansas locations or visit them, www.signature.bank, to learn more. Had to do some reaching out about some of these guys. I've actually got a couple phone calls set up with just some people who are on the beat at Kentucky later this afternoon. I'll be interested to hear about that. But I reached out to somebody who covered a couple of these guys extensively at Illinois. In terms of Antigua and Chin Coleman. A lot of what you said was echoed in here, but my source on Antigua, and I've always, this is a household name in recruiting circle. Like, he's a shark of a recruiter, and was a very important piece to have added to this staff, especially when you're trying to, flip some of these freshmen over and get them to Arkansas. But what I got here is that it says Antigua is one of the better assistants in the country, in my opinion. And this comes from somebody whose opinion I value in terms of basketball. Very strong recruiter, ties in the Caribbean, the East Coast, but he can recruit anyone. Very good big man coach. said that Chin's a little bit different, but he has strong ties in Chicago and the West Coast. Took a lot of heat at Kentucky, but at Illinois, he was responsible for the recruitment of guys like Ayo Dosunmu, Coleman Hawkins, Brandon Podzinski. So several really, really good players at Illinois during his time. So I had heard in the past that maybe there was like some butting of heads between Cal and Chin Coleman. But hey, he's coming with him. So
yeah,
there you go.
I think I was doing some research on Coleman, and I think it was the I'm not even going to say who it was because I probably wouldn't say it right, but I remember that there was a line in the story about Cal and him going back and forth when Kentucky was a few years ago losing to St. Peter's in the first round. And so, yeah, I think trust him enough to, try to come get the job done in Arkansas. So, I'm going to be interested to see how it all shakes out.
Yeah, and again, like I do think it's important to note that this is a situation where it's not the entire staff, right? And you can also have up to 5 assistants now. You can just have 3 who go out on the road for recruiting. So like there's still wiggle room to make some moves. And so if you look at the way it's set now, Antigua, Coleman, Chuck Martins, that's 3 assistants. So if Bruiser Flynn is in a special assistant role, that's like what it's like what Todd Lee was doing at Arkansas before this past year, right? So that's a little bit different. Brad Calipari, that's a player development role. So you still got a couple openings for assistant spots, recruiting coordinators, like there's still work to be done here. And so, yeah, like there's wiggle room for holdovers, staff additions. Yes, like there's a lot of intel out there that suggests Kenny Payne, former Louisville coach, obviously former staffer with Kentucky. Everybody knows Kenny Payne, right?
Yeah.
Joining the staff in an assistant role. That's not official yet. In fairness, none of this is official yet. It's reports of what's expected to happen. When it's official, there will be an announcement about it, and I don't know if he'll announce it piece by piece or if he'll just wait until his entire staff is intact and we get a full release about it.
Right. That's kind of what I'm anticipating.
Yeah. And so the like room is there for Kenny Payne to join the staff. I think that'd be great. What my suggestion on Kenny Payne would be: do not look at that head coaching stint at Louisville and make your judgment about what he could bring to the table on a staff as an assistant.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, what your thoughts were on him. But I've always found it interesting that he's a Louisville guy, but Cal loved him at Kentucky and thought he was super valuable part of that staff. He's got so much experience too, man. Like, obviously a first-round draft pick in '89. Started his college coach career in Oregon in 2004. Was on him and Cal just have. I got a text from a buddy who said that he's like, nothing about Kenny Payne or really any of these guys is official, but on Kenny Payne, he's like, Cal and Kenny Payne have had so much success together in that run, and he was on the bench. In 2012 when Kentucky won their title. We've got NBA experience too. I just think I think sometimes taking that, going from, being an assistant coach to being the head, the man in the head seat, that is a huge, huge, huge adjustment. Like you're in charge of everything. You go from being in charge of certain aspects of the program to being, basically the GM of it. It's a big step to take. I think Kenny Payne would add a lot of value. I think feel like there would be immensely less pressure on him as an assistant coach. Obviously you're still asked, you're going to have duties and responsibilities and all that stuff. But I think some guys might just be better off as, trusted top assistants as opposed to, head coaches. Yeah,
no doubt about it. I already see somebody in the chat, Daryl Williams, in here saying Kenny Payne, the big man whisperer. I love that. Because, listen, I'm an old school guy when it comes to basketball. I appreciate a true big man, a back to the basket guy who you can dump it into, who's got some footwork, a drop step, knows how to use a pivot foot, knows how to use his ass and seal somebody off and get position. I love the idea of having something like that. And if you have guys on the staff who can really coach that up, I think that'd be great. I think from a recruiting standpoint, what Arkansas is putting together right now, and listen, Coach Cal sells himself, first of all, but you got to have dudes who are out on the road who have a name for themselves, and those guys bring that to the table. And they've also all been largely responsible in getting this freshman class in. And so if you think about, like, Kentucky just made their hire, we'll talk about that maybe in a minute. But I've already seen, like, oh, this booster is combined with this booster, and they've raised this much NIL to support, Pope as the new coach.
I've seen reports of like $4 million.
Yeah. Okay. So about half what Arkansas has. That's cool. But no, it's like they're going to have plenty of money. But in all seriousness, they're probably going to try to throw some bags to keep some of these guys around, right? But when you take the head coach that these guys were committed to play for, the staff that was recruiting them, it only increases your chances on getting these guys in, right? So I do think that's important. There's only a couple holdovers left from Eric Musselman's staff. And let me also say this. I know a lot of people were talking about the importance of maybe Cal getting the Welch guy over with him because he was kind of like the offensive guru, the OC, whatever you want to call him. And he's at Fresno State now in an associate head role. And so, yeah, like maybe you need a guy who can come in and provide some X's and O's and everything like that. I get it. But if you're Arkansas fans, and listen, I'm not trying to take any shots here. I'm really not. But consider the staff that you just had. A lot of inexperience there.
Sure.
A lot of inexperience on that staff. Okay?
Good job driving that home.
So this is going to be a little bit different of a world, even if these guys have some flaws, right, when they come in. So just perspective, I guess, is what I'm saying here. Nothing official, but have it on pretty good authority that Ronnie Brewer Jr. and Riley Hall will be back at Arkansas in some capacity.
You love to hear that, right?
Yeah. I have no idea what that's going to look like. For Brew, if that, if one of those assistant spots falls to him, or if he, like he was the recruiting coordinator before he got elevated to that role, don't know. But the indications I've had so far are very positive on that front in terms of him being retained. And then Riley, like we've said before, the brains behind the operation, man. He doesn't get enough credit for what he does. Well, and that's what happens when you're the internal ops guy.
Yeah,
like you do everything behind the
like
scenes.
Behind the scenes, and then he's more often than not, in the past, he was like tweeting for Eric while he was at the podium talking
Also
to
true.
us after a game.
We would see him off to the side on his phone, and then you would see a tweet come out from us while he's talking to us. And it's like, well, I know he didn't send that.
Yeah,
but
a lot of times you'd only see him when you saw Eric. But, yeah, it's super valuable guy to the program. And I got to, when we were at the SEC tournament, talk with Ronnie Brewer after, gosh, what was it? It was like that first half of the Vanderbilt game when T-Mark didn't score at all, and then he went for like 18 in the second half and really flipped that game on its head and got Arkansas back in it. And Ronnie, I went and talked to Ronnie because me and you talked all the time about how we thought Tremont Mark had like a pro-level type of offensive bag to him. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I wanted to go talk to Ronnie because Ronnie knows what that's like. Like he played in the league for a long time. He was like a two-time All-SEC guy when he was at Arkansas. So I value his opinion, and that's just insight that we just didn't get. The last, I think this last year was his third year in the program as a recruiting coordinator, and last year as an assistant. He got some assistant coach duties, but just really valuable insight that he can bring. And I mean, he's Arkansas, man. Like he's Fayetteville kid. Dad is program royalty. Like honestly, it would be really silly to not retain a guy like that.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt about it, man. That's Brew would bring super value to any staff, and I know he's had some other opportunities, but his largest value is at Arkansas. I mean, you can't have, even if you're a guy like Coach Cal, like you can't have enough NBA experience on your coaching staff. It's just such a huge sell. And then to have someone like you mentioned who's just beloved in the state and a legend in the state, you got it locked down right at that point. And you talked about like getting that insight that we never really got. That is going to be another part of this. This is going to be different, I think, in a good way. because we never got the assistants with Muss.
No.
Very, very rarely. Like we got when he had surgery, we got to talk to Keith Smart.
Keith Smart before and after that game, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And then we got Gus like once or twice, maybe the entire time he was there.
Never talked to Ruda.
Never talked to Ruda. Never talked to Mike. Never talked to Todd Lee. And we never talked to any of those dudes.
Yeah.
We had David Patrick when Muss had COVID.
Right.
But you know, but Cal is very different from that standpoint. Like, I assume it'll still be the same way, and maybe some of the Kentucky fans in the chat here can chime in on what that looks like. But it seems like in some pregame, you know, pressers or Zooms or whatever, like sometimes he'll just send Antigua or Coleman or Martin or whoever
I remember
to go up there and do it. And I kind of like that.
I remember, gosh, I can't remember. I'll have to go back and look at Arkansas' schedule from not this past season, but the year before. Kentucky came to Arkansas to close the regular season in the 2022-2023 season. And I remember at the time, like, wondering when Kentucky was going to get in town. And then all of a sudden I get sent a Zoom link for like Arkansas Kentucky preview, but it's from like the Kentucky SID, and then Bruiser Flint sitting down and he's talking. I like that dude. I'm eager to, you know, get like for content purposes. Like it's nice to have, you know, Cal talked a lot about, you know, voices, and maybe Kentucky needed to hear another voice. I'm excited to hear a bunch of voices when it comes to like previewing games and trying to get to know the coaches themselves, because obviously we're not foreign to them, but we're still trying to, you know, get used to them. And then those guys have such, through the recruiting and all that stuff that they're going to be doing and getting kids on campus, they're going to get to know these kids on a super personal level too.
Yeah.
And they'll help us get to know those kids better. And so it just ends up being a plus for coverage.
For sure. Yeah, definitely good for coverage. I like having different perspectives.
What were you laughing at?
I'm loving it. Well, I'm just loving some of this in the chat.
I thought somebody might have been roasting me.
No. Like, I just like Ross here. He says, you'll know the assistants well. Cal will send him to do his pressers. And so I was thinking, all right, like, good. I thought that was the case.
I don't hate that.
But then, like, 2 comments later, he says, you won't like it because he also sends his assistants after losses to take his heat. So I don't care who he sends to take his heat. But who's saying Cal's going to lose? I mean,
I remember after Cal got tossed in Bud Walton Arena, he sent Kenny Payne into the post game before, and like I think he wanted to give Kenny his flowers for helping him, you know, come back and win that game. But yeah, that's
Kenny Payne 1-0 in Bud Walton Arena.
Yeah, that's a head coach choice, because like Eric would get tossed from games in Tulsa, and he would come in after games and still talk. So that's obviously like that's a head coach choice. And I just wanted to give his guy a shout out for helping him win a pretty big game in Bud.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Before we switch over to just a little bit of recruiting stuff from overnight, anything else on staff? And again, like if something pops here, like it's coming, folks. We don't know exactly when, right? We're going to go live and do this again from a recruiting standpoint. And hopefully at that point, like I said, I'm talking to a couple Kentucky folks here in the next few hours about just some of these other guys who are joining the staff that I just don't know that much about yet. And so we'll have a little bit more insight to share.
There was a comment here. If you're excited about Chin and Bruiser, you haven't been paying attention. Okay, we cover Arkansas.
Right.
We are not.
I have not been paying attention.
And have not been day-to-day Kentucky guys. So you're right. I haven't been paying attention, like, because I'm not going and seeking out on the regular, like, Kentucky media availabilities. I'm just not. Let me learn on my own. I will learn on my own, and then maybe after that I'll understand.
Yeah.
But
I'm excited about what I've heard from Chin as a recruiter.
From a writer, reporter, content creator standpoint, I'm excited about having another voice potentially to hear from and, you know, get insight from on a bunch of different things. So bring it on.
But for those, Kentucky folks who are saying, it's just a bunch of yes men. Oh, they don't do this and that with gameplay. It's not going to be that much different than what we just experienced. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
So,
One thing I am interested in, I would love to get maybe some insight from people who might know just what kind of a game planning staff it is.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I would imagine Cal has a lot of say-so in it, but is there a rotation? Like, is there a guy who focuses on offense and a guy who focuses on defense? And, like, I guess the special teams, like the sideline out of bounds, transition type stuff, like, I'm going to be interested to learn all of that.
For sure. For sure.
Because we got that rammed down our throat the last few years, and so I think that's kind of ingrained in my mind. Like, that's just kind of how I knew that's how a staff worked, obviously, but it got hammered home to us so much the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, no doubt about it. A couple things on the recruiting front, and then it sounds I've gotten a bunch of texts about the board back here. I will explain something. Just give me a sec. But at any rate, a couple things I thought were interesting that popped up last night. One, Liam McNeely. Are you familiar with his game?
I know the name.
Yeah. Has an absolute strap on him. 5-star, was committed to, I think Indiana. But anyway, he opened up his recruitment, and a lot of people immediately thought he was going to be a Kansas Jayhawk. But it's open. It sounds like he's looking to take some visits and decide what he wants to do after some of these showcase events that they
Give me a Montverde kid, man.
But he's got an absolute strap on him. But Arkansas was among the teams that he mentioned to, was it Biancardi maybe, in terms of who he'd been talking to.
Good chance.
Obviously, that probably trickles over from his conversations that I imagine he was having with Cal and some of these other guys while they were at Kentucky. Now it translates over. I like that.
Yeah.
And so I have no idea where Arkansas would be at on his pecking order. I've heard some different schools mentioned in terms of where he might go visit and be really interested in. Obviously, Kansas is one of them, but it sounds like they might be prioritizing some older guys at that position as they try to kind of rebuild that roster. So we'll see, especially if depending on how the rest of this high school class kind of pans out, right? Because if you wind up getting a Knox, a Richmond, a bunch of wings, then maybe he wouldn't be as interested in coming over. But if you miss on one of those guys or prioritize him instead, then maybe you got a better shot at it. So we'll see.
Sure. Yeah, I pulled up the scouting journal on McNeely about a year ago. Jamie Shaw said, quote, Liam McNeely can shoot the basketball. That is probably his feature tool, but he's more than just a shooter. Good positional size at 6'7", can straight line drive, a sloppy closeout, knock down a 1 and 2 dribble pull up, smart off ball cutter, good team defender, understands footwork, angles well. And then something that really jumped out is mom played D1 ball, so did 2 uncles and a grandfather.
Hey,
so this dude comes from good stock, as Ellis likes to say.
It's in the genes.
For sure.
I like it.
No, anytime you give me a 6'7" kid from Montverde, I'm all ears.
Yeah. The other thing, longtime friend of the board, Keyshawn Hall, the transfer out of George Mason, who was essentially a silent commit to the previous staff. They were trying to decide whether or not they were going to take him, not from a talent standpoint, but just doing background checks and everything like that. He released the top 4, and it was, I can only remember 3 of them. It was Michigan State, who I think got to the party late, USC, where Eric Musselman is at now, Arkansas, and somebody else. Doesn't matter.
It was USC, Arkansas, UCF, Michigan State.
There you go. So I read an interview that he did. I think it was with 24/7 Sports. I can't remember if it was Dushan or Jenkins over there, but he was just talking about how Ronnie Brewer had recruited him hard with the Arkansas staff, and he's still at Arkansas, and so he's still interested in everything like that. I don't see that happening. I just don't.
That's the vibe I got last night after I texted you about it.
Yeah, and I mean, I could always be wrong because I don't know what Cal's doing right now, but I wanted to throw this out there at you because somebody threw it at me, and I thought it was interesting about what if Muss planted that seed. Like he wanted to play for him, and so maybe he's going to go play for him at USC, but he wanted to do a list cut, whatever, and then Muss was like, just throw Arkansas on there. Try to get one of those early recruiting wins. You think he'd do some stuff like that? I think he would.
Yes.
I think he would.
I really do. I mean, he'd like to. I mean, USC fans would be like, "Oh, Arkansas and USC in a recruiting battle, and we got this kid over Cal."
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to win an early brownie point at your new job,
Dude.
After you got Clark Slackert.
Yeah. Yeah. Shout out to the OG of the board, Clark Slackert, USC point guard.
Yeah, I texted you last night. Was like, man, I might get some use out of that Keyshawn Hall analysis after all. And then 20 minutes goes by and I haven't gotten a response yet. And I'm like, okay, I think I'm picking up what you're not putting back down right now. And so
Yeah.
I initially retweeted it, and then full transparency, I undid it. And I might go ahead and just delete that whole draft.
Well, don't do that, but because you never know.
Send it to the LA Times, special to the LA Times from me.
There you go. Yeah, yeah. You guys don't have to worry about a story. We got you covered. So, yeah, I had a few people messaging me about the board back here. It's like, should I? He's got names circled. They got names circled. What's going on? It's not that serious. Like Jaden Quaintance and Carter Knox and Sam Tosiro. Those are just the guys who have reopened their recruitment at this point from Kentucky, and the other ones haven't yet. So that's why they're circled, because they are like officially, I put in air quotes, available, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Avicic, Big Z, and Thiero, just guys that we've heard just some buzz about, and we mentioned it yesterday on the show. Is about them, just little things like you've already heard that there might be some interest there in a reunion with Cal, and then you see them reposting stuff on IG and following the men's basketball accounts. So that's why those two guys are circled. Nothing crazy there. Yeah, we added Liam McNeely off to the side. I just didn't know where to put him because he's not a portal contact. He's not part of the sign class, and I didn't want to start a new thing for incoming freshmen.
Yeah, he's in his own tier.
Yeah.
There.
So,
I guess we need to add Dre Davis to that Cal's transfer contacts.
did we not add him yet?
Oh, there he is. I just can't see.
Okay.
where-
Oh, yeah. I just threw Keyshawn Hall at the bottom because he put him in the top 4. I didn't
Yeah.
even put his school on there for reasons. But yeah, Dre Davis was the Seton Hall kid that we're.
Yeah, I think we talked a little bit about him yesterday.
Yeah, we talked about him yesterday. Good player.
He's been added to the
Big wing.
He's been added to the recruiting big board that's stickied at the top of our website. If you're interested in checking him out, there's highlights and college basketball scouting highlight tape, and then a shot chart and stuff that I really nerd out over.
For sure.
But yeah, some notes in there too on him. So we are aware.
For sure. Ross says Thiero hates Cal. He's not coming. I've heard otherwise, but I don't know. We'll see. Let's go to the chat and get through some of this. And again, like we don't want to stay on here too long because we're hoping that we can get back on here a little bit later today. What a great way to start. Dalton's Motorsport says, all hail the chicken man.
Who was it?
Agreed.
Who was it that Ellis said yesterday? Put the
Carter Knox.
Carter Knox. Yeah, put
Yeah.
the chicken man in his Instagram bio.
He might be putting a hog by it here pretty soon.
No doubt.
Gus Cooper says, good morning, fellas. First recruit coming in today. Very possible. I mean, I don't know for sure. If you're not picking up what we're putting down here, there are things done that we're just kind of awaiting an announcement on
Yeah.
for some guys here. So when that's going to happen, I don't know. Sooner the better. Get some dudes in here. Lawson Blake needs some damn help. All right? He needs some help. He can't do it by himself. He's been holding the program up for far too long at this point. You got to get the man some help.
What is this Champions Classic tweet that I'm seeing?
Is that fake?
I think it might be. Onward.
Okay. A lot of fake tweets out there, fake stuff out there.
Man.
What we got here? Oh, okay. Yeah. Arrowhead KC says, let's welcome Mark Pope into the SEC by taking all the UK recruits today. That's probably the plan, I would imagine. We touched on that a little bit. They're going to obviously pony up in the NIL department to support Mark Pope, as they should. And I'd imagine that trying to retain any as much as they can of this number 2 ranked signing class is going to be a priority there. It's going to be an uphill battle for them.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't know, man. Like, I just don't like, and I could be very well wind up on old takes exposed or cold takes, freezing cold takes in a while. I don't know how this is going to go.
Me neither. I think
and I know that he understands what Kentucky is because he was a part of making Kentucky what it was with that 96 title. But man, he's been in Utah since 2015. And the landscape of college basketball has changed. It's flipped on its head since then, dude. Like, it's just, and I know he understands the transfer portal and all that stuff, the NIL or whatever. It's just going to be it's a different animal.
I saw somebody tweet out, good coach, wrong hire. And I feel like that might be where I'm at with it. Because I do think he's a good coach. Kentucky's just different, man. And when you're replacing a personality and a presence like John Calipari, and I know Kentucky fans, he kind of wore out his welcome there. I get it. That you just got to make a splash. And you can't publicly pursue Scott Drew, Danny Hurley, and have all the smoke about Billy Donovan, whether they aggressively pursued him there at the end or not, and then land on Mark Pope and expect it to drum up the type of excitement you were hoping for. That doesn't mean it won't work out. And they're doing the right thing now by selling it with, hey, we're going to give him all the resources he needs to go out and build a winner.
Sure.
I just wonder how long that process is going to take and how much patience they're going to have to let him build it.
Yeah.
Because I don't know that it's going to be the overnight type of success that Kentucky fans are expecting, and rightfully so for that program, you know?
I mean, I think he even said it himself, like the expectation there is to hang a banner every single year.
Yeah.
And so the patience is, it's already thin because they haven't been to the second weekend of the tournament since 2019.
19? Is that one?
Yeah, I think so. They're running out of patience.
Yeah.
And who knows, like if it, the success doesn't come as fast as they want, maybe some of that money gets, starts to get backed out. But I think I saw a graphic last night that Pope's teams play like a video game. And so, like, you look at the metrics, I can kind of understand what you're saying.
A lot of threes.
And the adjusted offensive efficiency numbers they're nice. Like at BYU, they were nice. But then again, like there were 2 top 25 offensive efficiency years for BYU under Pope, and they were in the WCC.
Exactly.
Last year it was top 15. They were in the Big 12 first year there. Should thank Jackson Robinson for that.
Yeah. They were also the classic overachieve in the non-conference and then regress to the mean during league play. It's like you set the metrics on fire and then you've just kind of
started the year 12-1, finished 23-11.
Yeah. I was listening to somebody on a podcast this morning. I was out on a walk and he was doing the whole, listen, Pope's BYU teams finished ahead of Kentucky in adjusted efficiency at KenPom 3 out of the last 5 years. In his first year in the Big 12.
Adjusted efficiency in what?
I don't know. In his first year in the Big 12, he tied in the standings with Bill Self and Kansas. Okay, Kansas finished 6th. This is the worst Kansas team in 2 decades.
This is the least feared Kansas team that maybe.
And so, hey,
I can remember.
Don't get me wrong. Great job in the first year in the Big 12. Made the NCAA tournament. Didn't go well for him, but great season. But like, let's not don't glaze here. Don't gas it up. All right. We'll see how it works out. I like Pope. I was cracking up listening to his raps last night.
Yeah,
Did you see some of those?
Yeah, it was good.
That was pretty good.
Cringy, but also it's like there's some personality there. Like
I would support that.
I saw a tweet from Goodman that says he's got some, people can, think he's goofy sometimes or maybe not a great coach, but he's got more stuff to him than people might realize. So again, and I kind of hate saying this, but I'm gonna be interested to see how it plays out.
Yeah.
I really, really am.
No, me too. Corey House
Especially
says,
like the summer months. Like, what's he get done in the summer months? Like,
Yeah,
I think
we'll see.
that's gonna be, maybe your first tell if he can, bring what they want to Kentucky year one.
I had a great time listening to Matt Jones' Twitter Spaces last night.
I stopped listening when I think it was maybe the first couple people couldn't figure out the mute button.
Yeah. Apparently that's really hard to do. I don't mess with Spaces that much, but everyone I've listened to, people just have a hell of a time unmuting themselves.
Okay. I'm foreign to Spaces.
I think the only time
I've
I listened to them, the only time I participated in one is when me, you, and John did it. And you remember that? And Hutch and JC, like when Arkansas was in Europe or whatever,
Yeah, I do
which was
remember that.
which was a pretty good time.
Yeah.
Corey House says Petrino and Calipari, the mob is back in Arkansas. Somebody call Hot Springs. That's pretty good. Oh man.
They got the gangster museum down there, boy.
Hog Homer says Pope versus Cal and Rupp's gonna hit. Yeah, that'll be a ton of fun. I hope that happens. We talked about it on one of our mini shows here recently, that with Oklahoma and Texas coming into the league, it's less likely that you get the home and home every year with Arkansas and Kentucky. But boy, they'd be idiots from a views and television networking standpoint to not do that. But if you only get one game against Kentucky this year, I hope that it's at Rupp. Like I just hope it is.
Yeah, that would be.
You want to play as many games as possible at Bud, but I mean,
yeah,
dude.
that would be an absolute scene, dude.
Yeah.
See a comment. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Comment here. Pope was Jeff Shepard's roommate, Reed's father.
Yeah.
Why would Reed Shepard come back to school?
To me, and I don't know all the ins and outs
again,
of
I'm
it,
ignorant to the situation, but to me, I see a pro.
Well, he's a lottery pick.
Yeah.
And the draft pool is only going to be better next year. It's like he could come back and have a better season, but because there's going to be that much more talent.
60% from three next year?
Yeah, what does he need to do? Right. And I know a lot of it too is, sometimes kids just want to put on for their city, right? And they also want to get a bag, which he can get, but he could be a lottery pick now.
Yeah.
And so maybe he comes back. I don't know. I mean, I watched all the things with his family. I know all the connections there and the ties, and so I think there's probably a better chance than the normal situation that something like that could happen. But if I was him, I'd be bag chasing, man, going to the league and starting that clock.
Yeah.
Just me.
No, I would do the exact same. I mean, that can be a reality in 2 months as opposed to 14 months.
Yeah.
And your stock might be lower.
Yeah. A lot of stuff in here, especially early on in the chat about retaining Ronnie Brewer. We talked about that quite a bit, but we anticipate that happens. Just don't know exactly what that role will look like just yet. Initial reaction for Pope to Kentucky. Yeah, we just talked about that. Dylan Clifton says, could you give a confidence percentage on Knox and Jaden? I feel near lock status on Knox, man. Unless something's changed in the last couple hours here. Jaden Quaintance, I probably wouldn't go quite that high, but I think I'm higher than most. I'm probably over 75% on that. We'll see. I feel really good about where Arkansas is at with both of those guys in the moment, personally. We got some Slim Chickens comments here. Every time I just think about that. And here's the thing, too. You ever open a box of chicken, whether it's Slim's or Cane's or wherever you get your strips from, and there's just that one tender where you're like, that's the one.
Yeah.
I don't even need to dip that one in the sauce because that one's going to be good. That's the one that little bastard took.
That sucks, dude.
Yeah.
Do you get yours tossed in anything?
Sometimes. I didn't yesterday.
I always get mine tossed in Buffalo and then get some cayenne ranch to dip it in.
Yeah.
That's my Slim's order, but I'll go to Popeyes.
But what I did is got they got the mac and cheese and tender bowls. Mm-hmm. So I got one of those, and then I just got some extra strips. And I was like, because sometimes sometimes they skimp you on the chicken, so I slice them up and throw them in there.
Yeah.
But I was going to have them separate, and yeah, little man got one. But good for him. He's earned it. He's a good dog. He really is. Let's see. A lot of good mornings. Good morning to everybody out there. Kenny Payne talk. We did that.
Okay. I when I was first talking about Bruiser Flint, I said he had a presence about him.
Yes.
Me and you talked about him
Yeah.
when he was standing out on the court. You would agree, presence,
Yeah.
standing on the floor.
Yeah.
And like, look, we're looking at this through we were looking at this through an Arkansas
talking about just
lens.
looking, just like
I was
looking
like,
at him.
He looks
I'm like, who is
he's-
that dude?
He looks
You
like
know?
he's somebody.
Yes. Thank you. That's a great way to put it right there, because that was my initial thing. I was like, who is that?
Yeah.
You know, just the way he was dressed, just the look about him. It was like, who is
Yeah.
that? You know, that's funny.
I think I don't want to say untrained eye, but like all of Cal's guys look like they're somebody, like they look VIP-ish to
Right.
me. And that's just a purely
Ross.
Arkansas perspective for
Ross
me.
is killing it in the chat. He says, you all know these assistants are terrible, right? He corrected to Chin's a drunk, Bruiser doesn't do anything. Hey, we like to drink beer from time to time. Those guys can come up here and hang out. That's how you develop sources. Okay. So bring it on, man. Oh man. This is funny. Daryl Williams says Coach O is the underboss. I assume he's talking about Antigua.
Antigua, yeah.
I could see that. I could see it. Some of the descriptors I've gotten on him have been great. Just describing him as a recruiter and everything. Shark is my favorite one though. I don't know. Underboss is, that's pretty close.
I was
think.
looking
like
for
that.
pictures of Antigua a little bit earlier, and there was one of him and Cal, but Antigua was chasing Cal and was like serving as his get back guy. That's a really good get back guy to have on your bench.
Right. Another one from Ross. He says, you all hiring these assistants shows Cal is not changing, but if you want that, more power to you. And again, like I think you got to understand a lot of it is there is no roster at Arkansas right now. You need one here in mid-April. And so you've got to have those recruiting relationships, first of all, to do that. And then secondly, like the staff's not finalized. So I get it. I 100% understand where you're coming from, because there is going to be a need for Cal to adapt in certain ways with how he builds a roster, with some of the things he does from an X's and O standpoint. All that's true. And we're not naive to that. But I'm going to wait until I see what the finalized staff looks like before I start passing judgment on it.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah, I believe that's only fair to do. Believe this is Demetrius or Pat.
Hey,
Shout out to y'all.
big shout out to Scottie. Scottie always deserves some shout outs. There's no doubt about it.
Dude, you sent that tweet last night, dude. I got like 500 new followers last night.
I like that.
And, that's the power and influence of Curtis Wilkerson to get a mass of people bigger than my hometown's population to follow some idiot like me.
Twitter was electric last night. Like people were just excited, and the engagement was really good. And then the Kentucky coaching hire news popped off. Like it was. Sometimes Twitter gets on my nerves a little bit, and I'm like, man, I got to get off of this for a while. Last night was not one of those nights.
Last night was fun, dude.
Yeah.
I'm normally a guy when I get home. We actually got out of the office yesterday at like a decent time, and
Yeah.
I appreciate you letting me get out a little bit before you did. But I'm normally like, we get the kids to bed, and I'm gonna put on a HBO Max doc, and you know, probably grab a cold snack and enjoy it. I turned the doc on, and I ended up watching zero of it because Twitter was on fire.
Yeah.
Absolutely
I know.
on fire.
Well, I was getting ready to start rolling through some. I told you guys before we left. I was like, man, like my wife's out of town. Like I'm about to get on the Sopranos because I'm tired of hearing about it, not knowing what you guys are talking about.
Didn't watch any of it.
I'm going to tonight. Dang it!
You've got
It's
to, man.
happening
You have
tonight
to.
for sure. Unless they just start popping off a bunch of McDonald's All-American commits, and then
Yeah.
I'll
And then
delay it.
And then I'm going to put out that Sopranos meme that I sent you the other day.
Oh,
that
dude,
I think would be super fitting.
I stayed up. I've got some bangers ready for when they start getting some commits. I
Yeah,
can't wait.
You were active last night, buddy. It was fun.
Oh, good times. Michael Kopeski says BBN is burnt toast. They'll be fine. They'll be fine. But it's the same thing that we talked about with John the other day. Do you feel the same way about Duke with Coach K gone and John Shire in? Do you feel the same way about North Carolina with Roy Williams out and Hubert Davis in? Would you feel the same way about Kansas if Bill Self was out and they brought in whoever?
Yeah. Who was Kansas coach a couple years ago when Arkansas beat them in the tournament when Self was
Norm?
out?
Roberts, I think his
Norm
last
Roberts,
name.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't feel the same.
No.
You didn't look down and fear nobody.
Right.
Not to say that these people can't turn into feared people, but man, that doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
At all.
Good stuff from Darrell Williams in here. He's talking about Antigua. Says he has a lot of respect in the ranks of grassroots basketball and in the NYC area. Very true, and that's it's weird to me that like there are a lot of great prospects that come out of there, but it's almost like an under-recruited territory based on what you would expect the ball to be like up there. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I was trying to I saw something earlier about Caleb Battle. I'm trying to scroll through it here, and we're going to get out of here in just a couple minutes. Appreciate everybody for tuning in, man. It's been awesome. The chat is cruising, which is really cool.
Last night's Twitter rolled into the chat today.
Yeah, exactly. This is very cool. I can't find it, but I think somebody said that maybe Battle said somewhere or told them or something about if he knew Cal was coming, he would never hit the portal. Well, he can come out of that sucker whenever he wants. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Yeah.
I think that a Caleb Battle, John Calipari marriage is something that would be very beneficial for Battle. I think he needs that. Because obviously there's a lot that comes with Cal in terms of the exposure that you get. We know how talented Battle is, but he is still rough around the edges in a lot of ways. And in a lot of ways that if you listen to Cal's intro presser, he hasn't put up with. Mm-hmm. And I think if Battle is able to make a couple adjustments and come back and be the type of guy that Cal's looking for, he could be a hell of a guard in the SEC. He already was, but it could be a difference maker and a game changer. I've heard some people talking about the bag that he's looking for. You don't always get what you're looking for, but he would be well taken care of, I'd imagine, if he wanted to come back. I'll be interested to see what happens there.
Yeah,
because
100%.
he's going to have suitors.
Yeah.
I bet Slick Rick Pitino would love to have Caleb Battle back up there close to his home.
Bro,
So
there's no doubt about it. And I'm sure he would, like KB would probably like some sort of a rough homecoming, rough in terms of like distance from home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm interested, dude, in like the Brad Calipari player development.
Me too.
Angle too. And like I was reading some notes earlier. I actually got notes together on Brad first.
Right.
And he's part of obviously it wasn't like an integral part of Kentucky's like Sweet 16 and Elite 8 runs, but he did go elsewhere to play his college ball, and then I found out that he put 20 points on Toledo one time. He was just dropping threes on them. Big part of that Detroit Mercy team, played in 27 games one year. But I'm interested. And like last year, player development guy under Stackhouse. Stackhouse knows all about, pros and player development and that kind of thing. And Stack trusted him enough to work, with his guys, intimately on their games and things like that. And so I'm interested to see, like, obviously I understand who your father is and, the weight that and the gravity that he has, but like, who are some of his basketball influences? Why did you want to get into player development? What makes you a good player development coach? Like, I'm interested in all that stuff.
Right. Yeah. No doubt about it. This is Ackroth the Destroyer says Lawson Blake's going to put up Swanigan numbers this year. You remember Caleb Swanigan?
Yeah,
R.I.P.?
Yeah.
Oh. Did I kill somebody?
I don't know.
He might have. I might be thinking about somebody different. He might have passed away.
I really don't know.
Either way.
Caleb Swanigan?
Yeah. Hell of a player in college.
He was on that Purdue team
Yes.
that Chris Beard's Little Rock team took down, if
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken.
I think so. I think you're right.
Yeah, he passed away in June of 2022.
Man.
So no fine for you today.
Bohannon says, could you score 8+ on Arkansas's current roster? Well, how long do I have? I think is my initial question. And what does this look like? You know, like if the jumper's flowing on a given day, like, yeah, I think I could knock down a couple threes on Lawson Blake. But, you know, like, are we playing to 11? Are we playing to 21? Who gets the ball first? Because he's going to back me down and put me in the rim. He's a strong guy. So if I get the ball first and the first jumper falls, then I give myself a decent chance if we're playing to, you know, infinity of eventually scoring 8 points in that matchup.
Yeah, there's no way I am. There's no way. Maybe that's some summer content. We could take it down to the art court, get a game going.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. Okay, man, this has been awesome. Really, man, you guys rock. I love doing these live because we can just talk for a little bit about things and then just start rolling through the chat. And some of you are hilarious. Some of you have great insight. Some of you have really good questions, and you kind of make the show easy for us when we do this. But we are going to get out of here. A little bit of a teaser. Sounds like our man Andrew Ellis is going to be doing a little live version of the Bombastic podcast. So if you guys are, by the way, in case you've forgotten, Arkansas is the #1 baseball team in the country, and they're at Bama this weekend. And Ellis is a good time. So make sure you stay on the lookouts for that. It'll be on all the on the socials. Make sure you subscribe to his YouTube channel for the Bombastic podcast, and then it'll be streamed on Twitter and Facebook and everything else, everywhere else that it goes where you might be watching right now.
I have so many screens going. I got the Masters rolling.
Tiger Woods, y'all.
And then shout out to Jordan Spieth, who had a 9 on a par 5 already today.
Wow.
And
Okay.
I'm going to have Bombastic live up and then the email open in case some news pops.
Yeah. Yep.
Officially.
And if something pops, we will be back with you live, unless it's during the John Neighbor show, which runs from 4 to 6, which we will just join him live at that point, and then we'll probably record something on the side. Either way, when things happen.
And then I'm heading out for my first date night in what feels like months.
Date night,
I'm excited about that. Yeah.
Yeah. What type of date? Is it dinner?
Mm-hmm.
What type of food? We don't need the paparazzi where you're going, but what type of food are we having here?
I think we were talking about it yesterday. It's going to be that spot that you like to go to a lot before Fayetteville Taco and Tamale became a thing.
Ah, that's right. That's right. Good for you.
Very
well, you guys
excited.
enjoy.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Wine
about
and
it.
dine Mal a little bit. She deserves. She's been a trooper during all this.
Did you see that tweet I put out yesterday? I got home and was like, I felt so bad because I didn't see her or the kids at all on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Got home yesterday and was like, just want to let you know, seriously, thank you for holding the fort down. And then she's she gets cold a lot, and so she goes into the bathroom and she'll warm herself up with a hairdryer. And she's like, I'm thankful for hair dryers and the babysitter that's going to watch the kids tomorrow night.
There you go. There you go.
So I was like, I kind of felt a little hurt, but at the same time, I understand it.
I like it. Well, I'm home alone. Wife's in Florida, working.
Just get on The Sopranos.
I'm gonna get on The Sopranos. Might get some more chicken tenders. Me and the dog would just hang out.
Yeah, just get him
But I
one
prefer
in his
that.
own little box.
All right, we're out of here, people. Appreciate you. We'll be back soon. For Scottie Bordelon, it's been Curtis Wilkerson with Natty State Sports Pod Palace. Catch y'all later.